Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to today's Reddit Quickie from the subreddit HFY, called Bird Brains, written by Regal Legal Eagle. The link to the original will be down below, and as always, I hope that you enjoy. You can't do this, it's insane! They were walking quickly down the service corridors of the station while Cole checked the straps on the strange suit that he was wearing. It had been hastily assembled, and he had already had the plans for it, and he was convinced that it would work. He just had to get Will to stop worrying. Look, the Fsians are already here, and they're going to mess this entire place up unless we do something. Right? Fighting them is straight out of the question, because we don't have the gear or the numbers. And even if we did, it would be the start of a massive war. Right. So this is the only shot that we've got to peacefully end this. I'm telling you, I've studied their culture, and I know that they work. I had this suit planned, didn't I? Stop freaking out, because though the fail will succeed if I'm doing this. Cole was satisfied that they had made the suit to his specs. But how can you be sure? There are other species say that we should just run away. Will still wasn't convinced as they were walking along. Yet he knew that they couldn't let the Fsians turn the station into a hunting nest, no matter what the leader demanded. After all, most of the species here to trade would be considered prey, and he wasn't sure if the humans would also be on that list. Something had to be done. That's because all they do is stay away from the Fsians. You read the galactic pamphlet thing. No one deals with them. No trade, minimal negotiations, and intermittent wars. And lots of raiding. Well, I'm not going to let that continue. Humanity is going to open up a dialogue with these Xenos, and then it starts here. I studied these sorts of behaviors in college, you know. If I'm right, they're like raptors from back on Earth. What kind of raptors? Well, ask then. The ones with feathers, Cole said with a shrug. Well, but what kind? What do you mean, what kind? I just told you, the kinds with feathers. No, I got that, but are we talking about the dinosaurs or the birds? All frowned as he tried to make sense. They're all birds. Those horror vids that you watch are all wrong. They didn't have scales or leathery skin. No, wait. I know what I mean. Are we talking about the flying kind or the ones on the ground? What? Cole stopped walking and looked at Will. What are you going on about? Flying? All raptors have feathers. I'm not talking about the kinds they show in those silly movies where humans keep getting eaten by the terrible lizards. I get that, Will huffed. I mean, you're talking about the ones from like millions of years ago. They were pack hunters on the ground, or the birds who fly around and stuff. The hawks or the falcons and such, birds of prey. Oh, Cole finally understood. The pack hunters from millions of years ago, but with other bird-like behavior. He looked up at the hatch hangar 15 where the Fsians fleet was sitting up inside. Then he looked back at Will. Is everything ready? Will sighed for a moment and then nodded. Yeah, everything's ready. All right, time to make history. Cole popped open the hatch and stepped inside, before Will quickly sealed it shut behind him. Out of all the species they dealt with, the Fsians were far and away the most colourful. He also thought that they smelled the best as he caught sense of the sum of the woodsy smell mixed in with the floral. It didn't take long before he was noticed in his drab, strange suit covered in a bunch of fabric and cloth. The drab-looking workers didn't bother him, but soon several large, colourful Xenos, their warrior class, approached them. They were one of the more similar species to the humans that it encountered, but their legs were on backwards and were more bony like a bird. Plus, their retractable talons were something else entirely. Other than that, their warrior caste averaged 7 feet, not including their plumage. They had feathers along their arms, too short to be useful for wings. More along their ribs and a strange tails, sort of like a peacock, but more flexible. While other species didn't know much about their history, Cole was fairly certain that they'd never been able to fly. Maybe glide, but he didn't think so. No, their plumage was purely for social hierarchy. Human! The Grand Hunter locked this hangar for a reason. Preparations are underway. We are not to be disturbed. Yeah, well, I'm here to tell him that there won't be the next hunt. Take me to him right now. Cole was firm and the warrior seemed uncertain, so he scowled and turned to guide Cole to directly in the middle of the hangar. Their makeshift nests were being built, colourful banners hanging from the ships and tents all over, and the Grand Hunter was assembled on his own feathered throne with sticks and feathers of the warriors who had sworn him fealty when Cole arrived. He could see the figures in the tents behind the Xeno leader and the colourful tents. He caught a brief glances and could hear the higher-pitched cling of the Avians. That would be the Grand Hunter's harem. They were likely fasting before the hunt already. The females gathered food while the males gathered trophies. Usually. Well, there wouldn't be any hunting if he had his way with things. The Grand Hunter growled as his warriors pulled back. But Cole walked up to him. "What's the meaning of this? We forbid strangers from entrance while we prepare for a hunt." "Yeah, well, there won't be any hunt. I'm challenging you for control of the flock, tribe, clan, whatever you call it." The Xeno blinked and then arched his head up and opened and closed while making the sort of honking noise that the Avsians laughed at. "You're more drab than my workers. You could never—" Before he finished, Cole yanked on a cord connecting the straps wrapped around his suit, releasing them as he left his own crafted plumage spring out around him. The Grand Hunter jumped back in shock, his own plumage spreading out wide. Cole's was bright and bigger. He could see the worry in the Xeno's eyes. And now to really seal the deal. "Now," he shouted, and the lights in the hangar dimmed, and a spotlight shone down on him as the music began. He turned then and began to strut towards some of the assembled warriors as their plumage quickly flared out. "You know this boogie is for real." He could see the confused Xenos flap their plumage as little as he approached, so he gave a little hop before getting into their face as he started dancing to the music. He kept focus on the first group, circling around them as he moved, and waving his hands in their faces to accent his moves. Despite being more than a foot shorter, they were clearly intimidated as he tapped into the social structure thousands of years old. Before long, they had closed up their plumage and dropped to their knees as he turned to the next group, turning away from them and actually moonwalking back to their position before spinning around and actually slapping one of the ones in front of him with a flake plumage under his arms before he jumped and clicked his heels, which he knew that couldn't be effectively do. The move made them quickly close up their own plumage and drop to their knees. Turning, he bobbed side to side for a moment before dancing across the floor as if he was dancing a salsa. He circled around the Grand Hunter, who was nervously facing him, and then he yanked open the tents that the females were in. He heard surprised trills and squawks, but they were all crowded around the entrance, so he knew that they'd been paying attention. For this segment, he actually dropped down a little bit for a brief Cossack dance, and he kicked his legs out to the beat of the song, before flopping onto his back and then kicking down and rising to his head spin. While he began again, he could hear the trills of the females grow louder, and as he stopped spinning and he's flopping his legs down, only to extend his arms very quickly and wiggle across the floor like he did a worm. When he reached the far end of the tent, he hopped back up onto his feet and figured the only way to leave was to moonwalk straight back out of the tent. The females quickly poured out, surrounding him in a Grand Hunter now. He turned to face his last challenge directly. He could tell that the Xeno was confused and entirely unprepared for the sudden challenge of his authority, so he quickly went for the throat, metaphorically. Strutting right up to the Xeno's face, he gave the bird, and kept dancing to the music. He circled the Xeno leader, sometimes facing him, sometimes facing away, constantly moving his arms and legs to the beat, and repeatedly slapping the Xeno with his fork's-tailed plumage. Finally, the song wound down and he stopped, facing away from the Grand Hunter, looking into the excited faces of the females. He leaned back and seemed to flop over backwards, only to carefully arc his back, pressing down on his hands and launching himself at the Grand Hunter, diving his feet into the Xeno's chest, making him gasp in shock and stagger backwards. Stumbling and then tripping as he fell, the females quickly parted, and none even attempting to break his fall. Cole panted beneath his breath. He lay on the ground, forcing himself to stand back up, and then walked over to the shocked Xeno. He reached down and yanked one of the Xeno's tail feathers free and brought it out with a pained whimper. Then Cole reached up and tucked it into the feather down into the back of his collar. As he did that, the Xeno closed up his plumage, and all around the warriors, the workers, and the females cheered, but their hawk-like cries. There will be no hunt. Instead, my clan shall provide a feast. He yelled, and above the cries and arms raised, he was panting hard, still sweating, just about everywhere from the intense strain of dancing. But they quickly rushed to lift him up into the air. He was the Grand Hunter now. Diplomats and soldiers be damned. This time dancing had won the day. End of story. And that, my friends, is the end of this Reddit quickie. I hope that you enjoyed. If you'd like to support the channel or the author, all the stuff is down below. And as always, I hope that you guys have a good one, and I'll see you in the next story. Cheers.